think I didn't do anything wrong, honestly. I stare at the crisp white paper on our granite countertop. The words are black, unforgiving. Petition for dissolution of marriage. It's a ridiculous, overly dramatic phrase for what this really is. A tantrum. My husband has handed me divorce papers because I had a little fun. Because I danced at a club. Now my whole life is supposed to capsize? It's insane. Everyone is blowing this so far out of proportion. My name is Lena. I'm 32 years old. A marketing manager, a mother, a wife, and apparently, a criminal. I was just being friendly, but now my world is tilting on its axis, and I can't believe he actually went through with it. He actually called a lawyer. For what? Rewind. Just one night ago. The silence in our suburban townhouse was the first thing that hit me. It was a loud silence, heavy, accusatory. I kicked off my heels by the front door, the click-clack on the hardwood floor sounding like gunshots in the stillness. Owen was already home. Of course he was. He was sitting on the living room couch, perfectly straight, still in his work clothes. A financial analyst to the bone, always rigid, always in control. It was nearly midnight. His phone was face down on the coffee table, a dark, silent square. He didn't look up when I walked in. The air was thick with unspoken words. "Hey, babe," I said. I had to force the brightness into my voice. It felt like pushing a boulder uphill. "You left the club early. Did you not feel well?" "Nothing. Not even a glance." I flopped down beside him, letting my body sink into the cushions, close enough that our thighs touched. He didn't move. He didn't even flinch. It was like sitting next to a statue. "Come on," I tried again, nudging him playfully. "Don't be like this. We were all just having fun." "You know, Reese, he's always been touchy-feely. It's just his personality." Owen's jaw tightened. It was the only part of him that moved, an almost imperceptible clench. "Touchy-feely?" he repeated, his voice low and flat. "Yes. God, Owen, you're acting like I committed some crime. It was playful. We were dancing, laughing. You know, the things people do at clubs." I rolled my eyes and reached for his hand. He pulled it away. The rejection stung, a sharp, quick pain in my chest, but I pushed it down. I had to fix this. "Look, I get it," I said, softening my tone. "Maybe it looked like something it wasn't. But you know me, Owen. You know I would never—" "Do I?" His voice was so quiet I almost missed it. But I didn't. The words hung in the air between us, cold and sharp. What's that supposed to mean? My defensive walls shot up. I crossed my arms, a physical barrier. "Are you seriously going to sit there and accuse me of cheating because Reese put his hands on my waist during a song? Because that's what this is about, right? You're jealous." Finally, he turned to look at me. His eyes weren't angry. They were worse. They were red-rimmed, exhausted, broken. "Lena," he said, and my name sounded foreign in his mouth. "His hands weren't just on your waist." My heart did a little stutter step, but I kept my expression neutral. A perfect poker face. "I'm a marketing manager. I sell narratives for a living. I could sell this one. I don't know what you think you saw." "I know what I saw," he said. He picked up his phone, his thumb hovering over the screen. And apparently, so did half the club. "You're being paranoid." I laughed, but it sounded brittle even to my own ears. "This is exactly why I don't like going out with you anymore. You turn everything into some big drama." He stood up abruptly, the movement sharp and decisive. "I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight." "Seriously?" I scrambled to my feet, following him toward the stairs. My voice was rising, laced with disbelief. "You're going to punish me because your insecurity is acting up? That's not fair, and you know it." He paused at the bottom step, his hand gripping the banister so tightly his knuckles were white. He didn't turn around. "Is there anything you want to tell me, Lena? Anything at all?" The way he asked it, so calm, so measured, it sent a chill down my spine. It was a test, a trap. But I wasn't about to give him the satisfaction of thinking his little guilt trip was working. "Yeah," I said, crossing my arms again, defiant. "I want to tell you that you're being ridiculous. And I'm getting really tired of walking on eggshells around your jealousy issues." "And two." He nodded slowly, as if he'd expected that exact response. As if I'd just confirmed something for him. "Good night, Lena." He disappeared upstairs. As his footsteps faded, I heard our 7-year-old daughter Sophie's bedroom door creak open. "Mommy, why are you and Daddy yelling?" I plastered a smile on my face. turning to scoop her into a hug. Her small body felt so warm. We weren't yelling, sweetheart. Just talking. Go back to bed, okay? But as I tucked her in, I saw the worry in her eyes, even in the dim hallway light. Kids always knew. They always knew when something was wrong, no matter how bright your smile was. Back downstairs, I grabbed my phone and immediately texted my sister, Carla. Owen is being a total psycho about tonight, acting like I committed murder or something. Her response came back in minutes. Ignore him. Men get weird when they feel threatened. He'll get over it. Vindication. It washed over me, warm and soothing. Carla understood. This was just Owen being Owen. Controlling. Paranoid. Unable to handle his wife having any fun without him hovering. But as I lay alone in our king-size bed, the space where he should have been feeling vast and cold, I couldn't shake the image of his face, the raw hurt in his eyes, the way he'd asked if there was anything I wanted to tell him, like he already knew the answer. I pushed the thought away. I hadn't done anything wrong. Reese was a friend, our friend. We'd known him for 3 years, ever since he started personal training at the same gym Owen went to. If anything, Owen should be grateful Reese was looking out for me while he sulked in the corner all night. My phone buzzed again. It was from Owen's mother, Helen. Is everything all right, dear? Owen seemed upset when he called. I stared at the message. My stomach dropped. He'd called his mother. At midnight. That wasn't like him at all. Owen barely told his parents when he had a cold, let alone called them in the middle of the night about our personal business. I typed back, my fingers flying. Everything's fine. Just a little misunderstanding. You know how sensitive he can be. But even as I hit send, I had the sinking feeling that this was bigger than I was making it out to be. The way Owen had looked at his phone, the way he'd said, apparently, so did half the club. And do one. What exactly had he seen? And more importantly, what had everyone else seen? The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee. A calculated move on my part. I was going to be the bigger person, the peacemaker. When I entered the kitchen, Owen was already dressed, reading something on his tablet. He barely acknowledged me. The cold shoulder was still in full effect. I thought we could go to brunch today, I said, pouring myself a cup. My voice was deliberately cheerful. You know, that place Sophie likes with the crazy pancakes. Make it a family day. Owen glanced up, his expression unreadable. Sure. His tone was so neutral it was almost worse than anger. This cold, detached politeness was unsettling. It felt like I was talking to a stranger. Great, I chirped, undeterred. I'll call Carla. See if she wants to join us. Maybe Mom, too. Whatever you want, Lena. And by the time we got to the restaurant, a noisy, sunlit place called the Gilded Spoon, I'd managed to convince myself that everything would be fine. A public setting, family around. He wouldn't dare make a scene. Carla arrived first, giving me a tight, supportive hug and shooting Owen a look that clearly said, "Get over yourself." My mother, Diane, came next, her face etched with concern, but she kept things light for Sophie's sake. So, Carla said once we'd ordered, leaning forward conspiratorially, how was your big night out? I saw some of the pictures on Instagram. Looked like fun. I felt Owen tense beside me. This was my chance. It was great, I said, beaming. We should do it more often, right, honey? I squeezed his shoulder. He didn't respond, just continued cutting Sophie's pancakes with surgical precision. Owen's just tired, I continued, speaking for him. He's not much of a party person, prefers staying home with his books and documentaries. Carla laughed. God, you're such an old man, Owen. Lena needs to get out and have fun. She works hard. She deserves to blow off some steam. Absolutely, my mother agreed, though she looked uncertain, her eyes darting between me and Owen. Marriage is about balance, trust. And that's when they walked in, Reese and his girlfriend, Chloe. I hadn't expected to see them, but the Gilded Spoon was popular with our social circle. Reese's eyes scanned the room and locked onto our table immediately. He grinned and headed over, Chloe trailing behind him with a smile so tight it looked painful. Hey guys, mind if we join you? All the other tables are taken. Before anyone could object, Reese had pulled up a chair right next to me. Chloe sat on his other side, her eyes fixed on her menu as if it held the secrets to the universe. The tension at the table instantly ratcheted up by 100 degrees. So, fun night last night, right, Len? Reese grinned, completely oblivious. Or pretending to be. You've still got some moves on the dance floor. I felt my cheeks warm. It was fun. Owen left early, though. He missed most of it. His loss, Reese said with a wink. I saw Chloe's hand tighten around her water glass. Carla, ever the instigator, jumped in. That's what I was just telling them. Lena deserves to have fun without someone watching her every move. It's called trust, right? She directed this last part at Owen, who finally looked up from Sophie's plate. His eyes were like chips of ice. Trust, he repeated, the word tasting like poison. Exactly, I said, feeling emboldened by my sister's support. I mean, we're all adults here. We're all friends. If you can't dance and laugh with your friends, what's the point of going out at all? Helen, Owen's mother, who had arrived just before them and had been quietly listening, cleared her throat. I think there's a difference between friendly, fun, and other things. The table went silent. Even Sophie looked up from her pancakes, her big eyes sensing the shift. What other things? I challenged, feeling my face flush with anger. What exactly are you implying, Helen? I'm not implying anything, dear. I'm just saying that when you're married, you don't stop being a person, Carla interrupted, her voice sharp. You don't become property. Lena has every right to dance with whoever she wants. And then Chloe spoke. Her voice was ice cold, cutting through the chatter. Dancing? Is that what we're calling it? The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. The entire table froze. Reese shifted uncomfortably in his seat, suddenly very interested in his eggs Benedict. Excuse me? I stared at her, my heart starting to race. Nothing, Chloe said, but her eyes, blazing with fury, were locked on me. Just, maybe some people should be more careful about respecting boundaries. That's all. What boundaries? Carla demanded. They were dancing, were they? Chloe's gaze was piercing. Because from what I saw, Chloe. Reese's voice was a sharp warning, but she ignored him. From what I saw, there was a lot more than dancing going on, and maybe if certain people cared about their families, they'd think twice before. That's enough. Owen's voice sliced through the argument like a blade. He stood up, pulling out his wallet and throwing some cash on the table. Sophie, finish your juice. We're leaving. But Daddy, I'm not done with my pancakes. Now, Sophie. My daughter looked confused and a little scared. I wanted to object, to tell Owen he was being dramatic, but something in his tone, a finality I'd never heard before, stopped me. As he helped Sophie with her jacket, Chloe leaned over and whispered in my ear, her voice a venomous hiss. Stay away from my boyfriend, Lena. I'm not going to warn you again. Then they were gone, leaving me staring after them in shock. Well, Carla said, trying to break the heavy silence. She's clearly insecure. I wouldn't worry about it. But my mother was frowning, studying my face. Lena, what exactly happened last night? Nothing, I insisted, my voice shrill. God, everyone's acting like I murdered someone. Reese and I danced. We laughed. We had fun. Since when is that a crime? Helen stood up, gathering her purse. Her face was a mask of disappointment. Since it stops being innocent, dear. As she left, I felt the first real crack in my carefully constructed confidence. But Carla was still there, still nodding supportively, still telling me that everyone else was overreacting. That had to count for something. Right? The text from the unknown number arrived on Sunday afternoon. I was trying to salvage the weekend, playing a board game with Sophie, pretending everything was fine. Owen was locked in his home office, the silence from behind the door more damning than any shouting match. My phone buzzed. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. It was a video file. Blurry, shaky, clearly taken from across a crowded dance floor, but it was clear enough to see two figures pressed close together. My floral dress, his dark t-shirt. Clear enough to see hands that weren't just on a waist. Clear enough to see heads bent close, whispered words, and a long moment, that looked nothing like innocent dancing. The message below it read, "Thought you should know this is making the rounds. Might want to get ahead of it." The sender was Marcus, Owen's work friend. My breath caught in my throat. If Marcus had it, that meant, Lena, you okay? Carla's voice came through the phone. I'd called her in a panic. You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, I lied, forcing a smile. Just tired. But I wasn't fine. As I drove Sophie to her friend's house later, Owen's words from Friday night echoed in my head. I know what I saw. And apparently, so did half the club. How many people had this video? How many people had seen what I'd so carefully labeled as harmless fun? Monday morning at the office felt like walking into a minefield. The whispers stopped when I walked by. The sideways glances. The way people suddenly became fascinated by their computer screens when I looked in their direction. By lunch, I knew why. Lena, my coworker, Jennifer, approached my desk. Her face was a mask of fake concern that barely hid her hunger for gossip. I just wanted to check on you. I heard things have been a bit difficult at home. I don't know what you mean, I replied, my eyes glued to my screen. Oh, she said, clearly disappointed. It's just, Marcus from the finance department was showing around this video? My head snapped up. What video? Jennifer's eyes lit up. She'd been fishing, and I'd just taken the bait. Oh, nothing serious, I'm sure. Just some footage from that club downtown. You know how these things get blown out of proportion. I felt sick. It wasn't just our friends, it was at work. It's not what it looks like. Of course not, she agreed, her tone dripping with insincerity. I mean, we all know how these things can be taken out of context, especially when alcohol is involved. She lingered, hoping I'd say more, but I turned back to my screen and ignored her until she finally walked away. My phone was buzzing nonstop now. Group chats I'd forgotten I was even in. College friends, neighbors, even some of the moms from Sophie's school. The video was everywhere, spreading like a virus through our social network. I opened one of the chats and immediately regretted it. Sarah, oh my God, did you guys see this? Lisa, is that Lena Miller? With that trainer guy from the gym? Michelle, isn't she married? Sarah, very married. I know her husband. He's super nice. Lisa, this is so messy. Michelle, I feel so bad for their little girl. I started typing furiously, my fingers shaking. This is being completely blown out of proportion. We were just dancing. Some people need to get a life instead of starting rumors. The response was immediate. Sarah, Lena, I didn't know you were in this chat. Lisa, we weren't trying to start anything. Michelle, it's just, the video looks pretty intense. Me, it looks like two friends having fun. Since when is dancing a crime? Maybe if people spent less time gossiping and more time working on their own miserable relationships, the world would be a better place. I deleted the message before sending it. Too aggressive. I typed again, just disappointed in how quickly people jumped to conclusions. Expected better from friends. Then I left the group chat entirely. But it didn't stop. Instagram DMs, Facebook messages, texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Everyone had an opinion, and none of them were kind. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to control the narrative. It's what I do for a living. I posted on my Facebook page, a public post for everyone to see. Some people really need to examine their own lives before passing judgment on others. Marriage is about trust, not control. Dancing with friends is not a crime. To those spreading rumors and gossip, do better. Within an hour, the post had dozens of comments. Most were not supportive. Helen Miller, this is heartbreaking to watch. Chloe Vance, dancing? Call it what it was. Amy, college friend. Girl, I saw the video. That wasn't dancing. Janet, neighbor. Think of your daughter, Lena. I started deleting the negative comments, but they kept coming, faster than I could remove them. It was a digital tidal wave, and I was drowning. Finally, I deleted the entire post. The world I had built, the carefully curated image of the successful working mom with the perfect family, it was cracking, splintering into a million pieces, and it felt like everyone was standing around, watching it burn. The first pillar of my support system to crumble was my own mother. She called Tuesday afternoon. Lena, I just got off the phone with Helen. Her voice was strained. Everyone's upset about nothing, Mom. It's ridiculous. Sweetheart, I saw the video. My stomach dropped. You what? Brenda Harper from your father's office sent it to me. She thought I should know. My mother's voice was quiet, full of a disappointment that was worse than any anger. Lena, what were you thinking? I was thinking I was having fun with friends. I snapped. Since when is that illegal? It's not about what's legal. It's about what's appropriate. You're a married woman with a child. You have responsibilities. Don't lecture me about responsibilities. I shot back, the words tasting bitter. I work full-time. I take care of Sophie. I manage the household. God forbid I have one night of fun. That's not what this is about, and you know it. Then what is it about, Mom? Because I'm getting really tired of everyone acting like I'm some kind of monster. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then she said, her voice heavy with sadness, "It's about respect, Lena. For your husband. For your marriage. For yourself." I hung up on her. The next pillar was Reese. I tried calling him, texting him. Nothing. He was ghosting me. Finally, I cornered him at the gym on Wednesday. He looked cornered, like a trapped animal. "Reese, we need to talk." "Lena, I think we should keep some distance for a while," he said, not meeting my eyes. He was busy wiping down a machine that was already spotless. "Distance? Reese, we're friends. We've been friends for years." Addie Moore. "Yeah, well, maybe that was a mistake." He glanced around nervously. "Chloe's really upset. And honestly, I don't blame her. What happened at the club? It got out of hand." "Nothing happened," I insisted, but the lie felt thin and weak, even to me. "Look, I'm sorry about your marriage troubles, but I can't get involved," he said, his voice firm. "Chloe's already talking about couples therapy because of this mess. And well." He walked away, leaving me standing alone in the gym lobby, the smell of sweat and disinfectant filling my lungs. He was saving himself. He was throwing me to the wolves. The coward. The last and most painful pillar to fall was Carla, my sister, my biggest defender. She had grown quiet over the past few days. Her texts were short. Her calls went unanswered. She was avoiding me. I didn't understand why. She was the one who told me to ignore him, that he would get over it. On Friday night, Owen started packing a suitcase. He moved around our bedroom with a quiet, mechanical precision, folding his clothes into neat squares. "Where are you going?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "My brother's place. Just for a few days. I need space. To think." "What about Sophie? She'll stay here with you. I'll pick her up for school Monday morning." "Owen, please." My voice cracked. "Can't we just talk about this?" He paused, a half-folded shirt in his hands. He looked at me, and for the first time all week, the coldness was gone, replaced by a profound, bottomless sorrow. "What would you like to talk about, Lena? Because I've been waiting all week for you to tell me the truth, and all I've gotten are excuses. Blame. Lies. I've told you the truth." "No," he said, shaking his head slowly. "You've told me your version of the truth. The version where you're the victim and everyone else is crazy. The version where what happened was innocent and I'm just insecure." He zipped up his suitcase. The sound was deafeningly final. He walked to the door, pausing with his hand on the knob. "You've told me the version," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "where our marriage is worth less than one night of attention from another man." He left. The front door clicked shut behind him, and the house fell into a silence that was bigger and emptier than any silence before. I sat on our bed, surrounded by the ghosts of our life together, and finally, for the first time since this whole mess started, I let myself cry. I cried for my collapsing world. I cried for my broken marriage. But mostly, I cried for myself, alone in the wreckage, still convinced that the fire wasn't my fault. The lawyer's office was beige. Beige walls, beige carpet, beige conference table. It was a room stripped of all emotion, designed to be neutral. It felt like a purgatory. Owen sat across from me. He looked tired, but resolute. Next to him was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense haircut. She introduced herself as Patricia Chen. "Thank you for coming, Mrs. Miller," Patricia said, her voice professionally level. "My client has asked for this meeting in hopes of reaching an amicable resolution." "A resolution to what?" I looked from her to my husband. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Owen, what is this really about?" Owen didn't answer. He just opened a manila folder in front of him. "It's about our marriage, Lena, and whether we still have one." Patricia slid a document across the polished table. The masthead of a law firm was printed at the top. "These are separation papers, temporary for now. They outline custody arrangements for Sophie and financial responsibilities while you both decide how to proceed." I stared at the papers, the words blurring together. "You're actually doing this. You're actually leaving me over one stupid night." "It's not about one night, Lena," Owen said quietly. "It's about how you've handled everything since. It's about the lies, the manipulation, the complete refusal to take any responsibility." "I haven't lied about anything." Patricia cleared her throat, a soft, deliberate sound that cut through my denial. "Mrs. Miller, I have to advise you that we have substantial documentation of the events in question, as well as your responses to them. Before we proceed, I want to give you one more opportunity to address this honestly. Documentation? A cold dread crept up my spine. What kind of documentation? Owen reached into his folder again. This time, he pulled out a thick stack of papers, video evidence from the club. He began, his voice flat. Screenshots of your social media posts, transcripts of text messages. You went through my phone. The accusation was automatic, a reflex. I didn't have to, he said, sliding the first page toward me. It was a printout of my Facebook post. My own words stared back at me, arrogant and defiant. You posted most of it publicly. He slid another page over. It was a screenshot of a text conversation. My heart stopped. It was my exchange with Carla, where I'd called him a psycho and said he was acting like I'd committed murder. How did you get those? I whispered, horrified. Carla forwarded them to my mother, Owen said, his eyes holding mine. She thought Helen should know what you really thought. She said she was worried about Sophie, and she thought maybe if you saw how your words looked on paper, you'd realize how hurtful they were. My own sister. The betrayal was so profound it left me breathless. Patricia slid another document across the table. These are witness statements, Mrs. Miller. From other patrons at the club, from your coworkers, from parents at Sophie's school who've expressed concern about the home environment. Concern about what? I was getting angry now, feeling cornered. I'm a good mother. No one is questioning your love for Sophie, Owen said, his voice softening for a moment. But your judgment, your priorities, that's exactly what's being questioned. He pulled out his phone and set it on the table between us. The screen was dark. Do you want to see the video, Lena? The actual video, not the story you've been telling yourself. No, I think you should, he insisted. I think you should see what everyone else sees. I said no, because you know, don't you? Patricia's voice was gentle, but her question was a scalpel. You know it wasn't innocent dancing. You know it crossed lines. You know it was inappropriate for a married woman. Tears started to well in my eyes, hot and shameful. I pushed them back. I would not break. Even if it was inappropriate, I said, my voice shaking. Even if I made a mistake. That doesn't mean our marriage has to end. People work through things like this all the time. You're right, Owen agreed. They do, when both people are willing to acknowledge the problem and work on it. But you've spent 2 weeks gaslighting me, telling me I'm crazy, telling everyone who will listen that I'm the problem. And are. He stared at the evidence of my own words, laid out on the table like an autopsy of our marriage. The lies, the half-truths, the blame. It was all there, in black and white. So you've just been building a case against me this whole time, I murmured, defeated. I've been protecting myself, Owen corrected firmly, because I realized that the woman I married, the woman who would have been horrified by her own behavior and immediately apologized, she doesn't exist anymore. The woman sitting across from me is someone who lies, manipulates, and blames everyone else for her choices. The words hit me harder than a physical blow. That's not true, isn't it? Patricia leaned forward. Mrs. Miller, in the 2 weeks since this incident, have you once, even once, taken full responsibility for your actions without adding a but? I opened my mouth to respond, then closed it. Had I? Have you once, she continued, her gaze unwavering, apologized to your husband without also accusing him of overreacting? Again, the silence was my only answer. Have you once put his feelings, his pain, his humiliation, ahead of your own need to be right? The silence in that beige room stretched on, thick and suffocating. It was filled with everything I had refused to say, refused to admit. Finally, Owen spoke, his voice breaking. I love you, Lena. I've loved you for 9 years. But I can't stay married to someone who cares more about winning an argument than saving our family. I do care about our family. Then prove it. He slid a pen across the table. It came to a stop just in front of my hands. Sign the separation papers. Give us both some space. Get some counseling. Figure out who you want to be. And maybe, if you can find your way back to the woman I married, we can try again. And if I don't sign? Patricia answered. Then we file for divorce immediately. With all of this evidence. With testimony from witnesses. With documentation of your behavior throughout this entire situation. The custody arrangement, Owen added quietly, his words a final devastating blow, would be very different in that scenario. The walls were closing in. This wasn't a tantrum. This wasn't drama. This was a consequence. As I looked at Owen's face, at the pain and disappointment and resignation in his eyes, I realized it was never about one night. It was about all the nights, all the days, all the moments I had chosen my pride over his heart. It was about who I had become. With a hand that shook so badly I could barely hold it steady, I picked up the pen. 3 weeks later, I stood in our half-empty bedroom. The house felt hollow, stripped of its warmth, its laughter. Boxes were stacked against the wall. Owen was packing the last of his things. I watched him move, a ghost in the home we had built together. Sophie sat on the bed, clutching a stuffed unicorn, her small face a canvas of confusion. "Why can't Daddy live here anymore?" she asked, her voice small. I had no good answer, not one that wouldn't break her heart. Helen helped with the move. She was kind, despite everything. She moved with a quiet grace, her actions speaking of a grief that ran parallel to my own. "You can't fix this right now, Lena," she told me gently as we stood in the kitchen. "But you can start by being honest. With him. With yourself." That night, after signing the final custody papers, Owen with primary care, me with weekends and every other Wednesday, I finally stopped pretending. The legal jargon was cold, but the reality was colder. I had become a visitor in my own daughter's life. Even Carla, my once unshakable ally, had confessed. She'd shown our mother the text not out of malice, but out of a desperate, clumsy attempt to save me from myself. "I saw you spiraling, Lena," she'd cried over the phone. I didn't know what else to do. The final nail in the coffin of my denial came from Sophie's school counselor. She called to discuss some playground chatter. Some of the older kids had seen the video. They were saying things. My actions hadn't just humiliated me. They had followed my 7-year-old daughter onto the playground. The damage had spread further than I could have ever imagined. That evening, I sat alone in the deafening silence of the house and called Owen. He picked up on the second ring. "Hello? It's me." There was a pause. "Is everything okay with Sophie?" "She's fine. She's asleep." I took a deep breath. There were no lawyers now, no audience, just the truth. I wanted to say it, properly, with no buts. He waited. "What I did at the club was wrong. It wasn't just dancing. It was disrespectful to you, and to our marriage. And everything I did after, the lies, the posts, blaming you, that was worse. I liked the attention, Owen. And I was selfish. You were right. About all of it." I talked, and he listened. We didn't talk about forgiveness or about us. We talked about Sophie. We made a plan for how to handle the school situation, how to protect her. When I hung up, I felt hollowed out, but also lighter. The weight of the narrative I had been carrying for weeks was finally gone. Months later, the divorce was finalized. The shame didn't disappear overnight. It lingered, a quiet shadow in the corner of my days, but something else lingered too, a fragile, newborn clarity. I couldn't undo what I had done. I couldn't erase the video or unsay the hurtful words. I couldn't magically put my family back together, but I could rebuild, from the ground up, on a foundation of honesty. The woman who had danced so recklessly that night, the woman who had lied so desperately to save her own pride, she was gone. She had burned down her own life. In her place stood someone else, someone learning, slowly and painfully, how to live with the truth.